When we feed them the good stuff, they get stronger and they help us be stronger. So the unfortunate thing in the diet, the standard American diet, 95% of the people don't get even the minimum amount of fiber that we need to really thrive, even to avoid chronic diseases. So that's what it's all about.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. My guest today is Michael Dorfman, who will share how to age with vitality and purpose.
Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com.
Here's a question worth sitting with. If a disease was quietly forming inside of you right now today, would you even know it? Most of us assume chronic illness shows up later in life out of nowhere. A diagnosis in your 60s or 70s that feels sudden. But what if it isn't sudden at all? What if it's been building for decades? And the only thing that changed is it finally got loud enough to detect. That's the question that sits at the center of our conversation. My guest is 83 years old and he's not winding down. He's thriving, sharper, and more energetic than men half his age. And he's spent the last 2 decades figuring out why most people don't get to feel the way he does as they get older. We'll give you examples and show you how you can enjoy the vitality that he does and how to make those changes early, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Let's meet Michael and see how it's done. Welcome to Richer Soul, Michael Dorfman. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you very much, Rocky. Great to be here. I was looking forward to it.
And I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, I was born a long time ago. I'm 84 and a half. Going to be 85 in January. I was born in 1942. Approximately 1 month after Japan invaded the United States, Pearl Harbor. So I was born during the war, and my father, he was a painter at that time. He came across from, he was from Russia. They had to escape because of during the Russian Revolution. We were born a Jewish family. He escaped with his family and came to Brooklyn, New York, where I was born. So life was, we were actually considered, I guess, middle class. I remember we used to pay $60 a month rent for our apartment. It's wild, that. So that's, the value of money. So we struggled a lot. My father, but it was middle class. My father was the only worker in the family. My mother did a little bit of typewing work once in a while. But that's the way the middle class was functioning. There was a middle class at that time. So my father made a living as a painter, and we grew up. We had an apartment, but always the desire was to own your own house at that time. So we had that apartment. Then gradually we moved up to a little better place where we owned a brownstone. Also, this is all in Brooklyn. owned the brownstone, and we were able to rent out the bottom apartment. So now there was a business for my family, renting there, and then saving, and it was always saving to better ourselves. And, I'm really glad you brought this up because I don't think that much about that. So we eventually, my father said they saved up enough money, moved to Canarsie, which is part of Brooklyn. Same thing, an apartment, a better apartment. And then eventually the big thing happened where a lot of people from Brooklyn moved to Florida. So they saved up and they saved up, always remembering that money, you got to save your money. So they saved up their money and they moved to Florida. But at that time, by the time they were able to move to Florida, I was already living on my own in Brooklyn, teaching. And I was a teacher and living okay, an apartment. I was sort of like a hippie at that time. So we just making ends meet, not really caring how much money I was making, just enjoying my life and teaching. And then I went on to, university. I went to Brooklyn College in psychology, and then went to postgraduate, 2 years postgraduate in Queens College in Queens, New York. And that was my education. And eventually I decided to leave it all and come down to Mexico on a motorcycle. And I did that on it was a British bike. And it was a 650 cc's. So I came down on that Mexico, and I fell in love with Mexico. It went all the way up. Actually, left New York, all the way up to Canada. Came down in Toronto, through Detroit, and through the United States, and into Mexico on a motorcycle, and just enjoy living here. And so that was my way of getting it. Met my wife, Delia, who I'm still living. We've been married for, guess this, 55 years. And we had 2 children, big boys. One is Renato, he's 55, and the other one is Adam, who's going to be 50. So, and that's what right now we're semi-retired here in Mexico and have a small business, which my oldest son, Renato, was a sculptor, well-known sculptor here in Mexico. So we have a little business going.
Did your parents teach you about money by explicitly, or was it more that you just learned that they like to save?
I learned it. I think that, it wasn't just our life. It was the whole community. It was like the Jewish community here in Brooklyn, and people were more or less living on the same level. So I learned to be thrifty, that I went through some difficult times sometime. I wanted to get a sweater. I wanted whatever at that time, we're talking about in the 50s, was the fashion. We had white and black shoes. My friends got a sweater. Mom, I need a sweater. All my friends have a sweater. So, but I was always, we can't afford it. We can't afford it yet, but they tried. And eventually I would keep up, because you had to keep up, not with the Joneses, you had to keep up with everybody else who was in high school, all the guys. I was a member I played football in high school. So you had to be somewhat into the fashion there. So, but you always knew that this is the way it was, because they came from Europe, it was always a struggle. We're talking about the 30s, not all, and I was thinking about this recently. They went through my father went through the Russian Revolution, came here, and that was a big struggle. And then they went through the Depression. They got through that. Then we had World War II. And then all of a sudden, after World War II, everything changed, because the U.S. was in very good shape at that time, because they came out the winter. And then all of these appliances came. You could buy a car, and you can get a washing machine, and really a good refrigerator. And I remember they were trying to save up to get air conditioning, but before air conditioning, we would get this big fan on the window that would take out all the humidity. And I remember our first TV was in 1951. We got an Ainsley. So I was like 9 years old, and it was like, wow, we got a TV. We were just like the neighbors. They had the first TV. We had to go over to their apartment to watch Milton Berle or, the Lone Ranger or whatever was popular on TV. And once you got your own TV, it was like, we made it. So even though it was black and white TV. So yeah, that's the way it was. And I'm glad you brought it up because now I'm remembering.
It's funny. Even then, you had to keep up with the other people, socially, as far as wearing the right things or having stuff. Or, I mean, granted, life was still a little simpler, I guess, but same behaviors.
Yeah, the same behaviors. It was a different time because some even say it was the golden age of the U.S. during the 50s, because it was less of a struggle. Like people who came out of the war, it was like, oh, now we could relax. Now we can afford things and things were made cheaper. So this is what we enjoyed. Things have changed now. It's a whole different story now. But the basic thing of the human desire to get better, really improve your life. That's such an important part of living, just know that there's these goals that we have.
But I also remember what you said about your dad going through, escaping a country, dealing with the depression, dealing with the war. So they did go through a whole lot of struggle prior to the good days, I guess.
Yeah, you know what, Rocky, and I just want to mention this is I remember, I'm a writer now, and my father, because they went through these struggles during, leaving Russia and going through the depression, they never wanted to talk about it. And it's unfortunate. I never really got to the point where I started questioning, why don't you want to talk about it? Because eventually I became a writer. But this was something that I feel like so sad about, that I never found out what their life was, what their struggles were, because they didn't want, it was like, they didn't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about the good times. And it would have been good to know about that. But that's what happened then. And now life is what it is now.
But I think that's very true of that generation, that they didn't necessarily talk about the bad times, or that they just dealt with it and moved on.
Yeah, I suppose you're right, because my brother is still alive. My brother's actually in his 90s now. We're like the two left in our family. And yeah, he says the same thing. So I guess you're right. And maybe it's not only true for us, but, a lot of people, survived the war. And some, I know part of our family went through they had time in the concentration camp. Some survived. So, yeah, I can understand that, but I can't really understand it because it was such an intense time.
Well, and partially the reason for bringing it up is because I think every period of time, for the most part, wants to say, oh, times are terrible, and I was thinking you probably grew up in the 60s as well, right? So that wasn't also a great time. There was so much going on during that period of time. You had those, and then it seems like every generation has their thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because during the 60s it was the Vietnam War, and I did some what do you call it? I was in the National Guard. I did my basic training and everything, but I also got involved after with Vietnam because I ended up against the war. I protest before I came to Mexico. And so that was another the times that weren't so great. There was protests and yeah, you're right.
What was it that drove you to Mexico?
I think what drove me to Mexico was I wanted to get a different experience. I had read about Mexico, and I think I just want to, because I was 2 years postgraduate in Queens College. I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to have a new experience. I wanted to get away from the way I was brought up, the times, some great times, not so great times growing up. But I just thought it was a great time to just leave it all and just go, and not knowing where was it to leave, where was going to direct me, what was my life going to be. And it went through a lot of different things because I got to Mexico and I traveled through Mexico. At that time, we're talking about the 60s. Now Mexico is over 20 million people living in Mexico City, for example. And at that time, it was only 8 million people. So Mexico was an incredible country where you could, hitchhike. You can, it was a freer country. And at that time, so I spend my, 20s there, the mid 20s, from then on, in a country that was free, felt free. There weren't that many Americans that were coming here. A lot of Europeans were here, younger people like that. And I met them and we traveled. I went also to Guatemala. And so this was my life then. I was a hippie, just going around, not caring about too many things. And then until I eventually met my wife in 1969.
A long, long time ago.
A long, long time ago. For a lot of people, the new generations is like, wow, that was a long time ago.
As much as the world's changed, has it also stayed the same?
Yeah. Well, I think that human beings are human beings. We love the same things. We want the same things. We want to enjoy our lives. We want to feel love. We want to have good relationship with each other. We want to have a roof over our head. We want to make enough money so we don't have to scramble and where our next meal is coming from. So I think the basic things human have always been the same. Once enough to eat, we don't have to, not like our ancestors where they had to go from meal to meal because they didn't have a refrigerator. So things have improved, being able to, enjoy the technology that comes in. We like technology. Unfortunately, maybe we get too attached to technology, which I think is happening in the world today, that technology starts controlling our lives. And maybe I'm getting into maybe we forget the basics, what makes us human, and, we love to be with each other. Human beings are social creatures. We love to have a community, and we do very well with others. But unfortunately now I'm just seeing there's so much, loneliness in the world today that, people are on their phones, and they don't get together as much as we did. I remember when we were kids, we used to go over to everybody you just go over to somebody's house. You didn't have to call, make an arrangement, an appointment, find out that they're busy and they can't see you till next Thursday at this and the time. There it was like community. We lived that way. And that's what I remember, So we don't change. Human beings basically don't change. I think we have the same needs. We all have the same needs. But unfortunately, we get stuck on other things that aren't, we forget about those needs. We forget about that we're all human beings and we should treat each other equally because we're all the same. Maybe the governments change. The governments have their own things, their own agendas and everything. And we get involved in their agendas. But when it gets down to it, the humanness, the basics, we all want the same. And so.
Makes a lot of sense. So what inspired you to get into the longevity space?
Okay. Well, I think the decision was when I found out I was getting old, So, but I was into health. Actually, I was into health in 1976. Both my wife and I, we became vegetarians in 1976. Before that, we ate meat. I was in the standard American diet, meat, dairy, eggs, and some, fruits and vegetables. But I was, I played high school football. I was, I wasn't taller than I am now, which I'm not very tall. I'm 6'9". I'm 5'9". I'm 6'9". No, I'm not that tall. 5'9", and maybe I'm a little shorter now because you get older, you sort of compress a little bit. But I was 5'9", and I played football. I played the line, high school football. I was big. I weighed over 190 pounds in high school, and I even had 4 scholarships to university. So, which I eventually didn't play because they were too big for me, these guys. But anyway, in 1976, I became interested in Eastern philosophy and religion. I was reading on that, Zen Buddhism, Hinduism. Because I like that, I like what was happening on the other side of the world. It seemed that they were treating people nicer and it was more basic. So anyway, but I became a vegetarian in 1976, but it wasn't really primarily for health reasons. I became a vegetarian because there were a lot of vegetarians on that side of the world in the Orient. And I figured, well, I'll do that. So I did that, and I was a vegetarian for years. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, 76. So I was getting sick, even though I was okay mostly. I was losing some weight, which I was happy about. I was getting sick a couple of times a year, not terribly sick. I was getting flu-like symptoms. I was getting sore throat, fever, congestion, headaches, but it was happening every single year, like once or twice a year. And I didn't know why it was happening. But my brother, who was actually 90 last year, he's doing very well. He was vegan, plant-based at that time in 76, like for 10 years. And I don't even know if they even knew very much about the word vegan at that time. So he told me, because he was doing very well, he said maybe the problem was the dairy. So he said, why don't you try giving up dairy? And I said, well, good luck with that. I love my pizza. I love my cheese. So I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. So I kept on going. And then finally, I read the book. He told me about the book, The China Study by T. Colin Campbell. He's a biochemist. Well, he's in his 90s now. He's still doing, he's very active, writing. So he wrote the book, The China Study, which was based on he was contracted by China in 1980, I think it was, to do a study on cancer in China by the premier Zhou Enlai, who actually eventually died from cancer. But we wanted to find out. They came up with maps about why is there this type of cancer or more cancer in the larger cities than in the rural areas. So that's what they did. So Campbell went with his research team, and they joined up with the research teams from China, and they did this whole study I think it was over 160 communities or municipalities in rural China, finding out, well, what's going on there, And one of the main things they found was that it was mostly plant-based, that the meat was eaten in the larger cities where the cancer was, and much, much less. And they didn't suffer the same diseases, these chronic diseases in the rural areas of China as they were suffering in the cities. So this was some of the results they had, and it was from plant-based eating basically, and also as I remember, he writes about this. He's written several books, Campbell. He writes about this, that he actually, because he grew up in a farm, and I think his father passed away in the mid 50s. So he grew up in a farm, and they had a lot of dairy and meat, and he went and he eventually changed to plant-based. And that's why it was part of this was the China study. And he came up and he started doing studies in laboratories where, and I remember this study, that he was doing study with rats because he's a biochemist, wasn't an MD. And they did studies on the protein and the cause of cancer in rats. And he came up with this, that it was casein, which was the main protein in milk, cow's milk, that was causing tumors in mice. And so they had it and I remember it was when the amount of casein was over 20% of the calories, the protein was part of the calories in the mice, they all developed tumors, cancerous tumors. And then when it was reduced below 5%, the tumors went away. And he was able to manage the tumors going up and down just by manipulating the casein. So that was the thing that really said, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give up the dairy. So I did, and that was 18 years ago. And I've been whole food plant-based since then. and never turned back. And that's what it is. And that's what, for my health, and that's what, I'm experiencing this vitality in the 80s. But then another thing happened, which was really important for me, and maybe even more important, which changed my direction, in that I wanted to tell people about this. Because at that time, when this happened, it was for my own health. I was enjoying my life, feeling really good. A friend of my wife and I, Beatrice, she had a heart attack. And this was 16 years ago. We were living in Mexico, in Cancun at that time. And she went to the hospital. They did a quadruple bypass heart surgery. And they sent her home. It was successful. She was okay for a year. And a year later, she started complaining about pain in her arm. I think it was the left arm, which is also a sign of possible cardiovascular problems. So the doctors called her back again, and they wanted to put a stent in because there was blockage in the vein that replaced the original artery to the heart. So they wanted to put the stent in. Now, when you get a stent, having a stent put in after, surgery, heart surgery, is normal. People go through this after a year or 2 years after. And the main reason is that you still have the initial cause that caused the blockage in the first place. So the end result for Beatrice is that they told her, we can't put the stent in. Why? Because the vein that replaced the artery was too narrow. So they sent her home, and they told her they couldn't do much for her, and they sent her home. But what they didn't tell her, and they told my wife, who accompanied her to the hospital, and her son, that she had about 6 months to live. So I was back in Cancun when she returned, and I had already been reading about doctors and health professionals who were having success reversing heart disease through plant-based foods, through a plant-based diet. And the number one book for me was written by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who was the chief of staff and one of the top surgeons at the Cleveland Clinic. He's also in his 90s now. So he was wondering every year, how come there's more and more heart disease when our technology gets better, our learning gets better, and yet more and more, and not only in the U.S., worldwide. So he left he turned his direction towards plant-based foods because he was learning about that. And he created this diet. It's a strong diet, extreme diet on plant-based foods for people who are having terrible problems, cardiovascular disease. And he was in the Cleveland Clinic, so they were giving him patients, and he was having a 95% success rate with turning this around. And people, instead of living months, they were living 10 to 15 years longer. So I gave the book to Beatrice. And at the very top of the book, it's called Prevented and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. It says the book that turned Bill Clinton's life around, because he got involved. He became plant-based mostly, and he's doing pretty well now because he was getting stents put in. I think, a year or two right after his surgery, and he didn't want to do that anymore. So anyway, so I gave her the book, and she read the book, and she decided to make the change. So instead of living the 6 months that she never found out until the very end, that she was told she only has 6 months to live, she lived almost 10 years. And that for me was like, wow, that had such an impact on me, because it wasn't something I read about. It was a friend that actually happened to. And the doctors were amazed that this was really happening. She was getting back to her normal life, so anyway, and then I started wondering and questioning, how come this isn't the default diet for people who go through heart surgery? If it works, how come? And in fact, I remember she said when she got out of surgery, the first meal she had was bacon and eggs. So, and you find out that doctors aren't really trained in nutrition, and in lifestyle, and this is what happened, not only for heart surgery, but in general. So doctors, the default, movement is towards pharmaceutical drugs. That's, not teaching you how to be healthy through lifestyle. Yeah.
And that is very true. Doctors are not taught how they're more taught how to handle sick care. They're really not taught how to stay and be healthy and how different things affect the body. It's getting a lot better, but I think we're still a far way off, that you've got to find people who will actually help you with this. This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. Now, you've written a book called The Longevity Wellness Revolution. What inspired you to write the book?
Okay, well, I wrote my first book in 2019, which was The Thriving Vegan. And at that time, I was 100% plant-based, which I basically am now. At that time, the book was written about, the importance of, it was like almost everything was written on about, the solution is plant-based foods. So that was that book. And then I wrote my second book, which had nothing to do with, there's something to do with nutrition. It was the information warfare. It was about how information is being manipulated, and it is being manipulated all the time now, and even in the health industry. So I wrote that book. That was 2 years ago. And then I just realized, hey, you know what? I'm sort of like in my 80s now. And, I'm really enjoying my health. And I'm just wondering, what's going on here? Because I know that, and I'm here in Mexico, and we have a terrific expat community here. There are thousands of expats from the U.S. living in San Miguel de Allende, where I live. And we have a great pickleball community. I play a lot of pickleball. So that's one of, my favorite sport right now. So, and I see what's happening. And in general, the people living in the West and this on the standard American diet, we are used to being told that in your 70s, chronic disease is sort of a normal part of aging. You can expect that, because over 70% of the people in their 70s have at least one chronic disease. And it's even saying that even earlier than that. So people expect they're being told, it's a narrative that, what's the life expectancy in the U.S. or in the mid 70s, upper 70s. So you sort of expect that, well, it's time to wind down. And, you're over the hill, by the time you get in your 80s, well, you could survive. There's no problem with that. There are people who live into their 80s and 90s. You could survive, manage your illness, like you were saying, manage your symptoms and through pharmaceuticals, etc. So there it was. And then you were also told, you get to 65 and at 65 you retire. And then when you retire, you just slow down, you hang out, you can do all the things you wanted to do. You don't have to work anymore. So here it is, I'm in my 80s, and all of a sudden I'm saying, well, what's going on here? Because I'm not living that life anymore. I'm really active. I'm really, thriving because I'm not looking at the 80s as slowing down. I'm looking at the 80s as getting more vital, more vitality, more, enjoying that energy. So all of a sudden I said, I'm going to write about this. And why, the name of the book is The Longevity Wellness Revolution. So that, when I brought longevity, there's a lot, longevity is extremely important topic now. Everybody's writing, all the, research is writing about longevity. They have different theories and they put this into, and in fact, there've been a couple of symposiums or summits, that longevity summits, and people are telling, hey, you ought to go on, Michael, you ought to go on this summit. Yeah, there's going to be 20 experts, talking about longevity. So I go on there and I find out there's not one of them is in their 80s. Hardly any of them are even they're in their 70s. They're in their 50s and 60s talking about longevity. And I said, wait a second, I should be on that summit because, I'm living it, what they're talking about. And so I decided that, the wellness is better than the word than health, because wellness is more encompassing. It's, it's the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, it's all about its overall health as wellness. And the revolution is we got to look at it in a different way. And that's what, and another one thing that really inspired me was the blue zones, which I did a lot of reading on and I followed and I incorporated, because the people in the blue zones are the longest, healthiest and longest living people on the planet. And so I started getting into that and adopting what they're doing, their lifestyles. And then I, ended up, my son got involved in somatic therapy, and I'm getting into new ones that I'm applying in my life because I'm looking at my life now. I've taken on a new identity or a mindset, because mindset's a very popular, word now. Of I'm looking at as somebody I'm thriving in my 80s. I'm not looking to be healthy when I get there one day, but my mindset is I'm there already. And so I'm whatever helps. I learned that it's really important not to slow down in the 80s. The exactly opposite is important. You really have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge your mind, because we end up, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. All these things are waiting for us. It's like, okay, what can I do about it? I'm going to challenge my mind. I'm going to, make sure I'm not slowing down, because I'm getting near the end of my life. I mean, even if I live to 100, hopefully it's only 15 more years. I mean, who am I kidding? There isn't that much more to go. But I'm looking at, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start living in the moment. I'm going to start really enjoying my life, not, necessarily go on the outside, because, you can go to a party, you can go to an event, that's enjoying your life. But I think when you get older, for me anyway, is I want to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy my inner part, my inner self, get in touch with my inner self through meditation, through breath work and things. So this is what I'm doing as I go along. I'm seeing what can I do to really continue this, because especially if I'm going to want to share with other people what's happening with me and what I can do, what I'm doing, I want to make sure that I'm living it, because it's different, when you talk about it because you research the topic than it is when you're actually, living it. So that's what's important for me.
What do you think has been most impactful or helpful to you aging with more vitality?
I think, to me, it's plant-based foods. Now, I've been doing it's 18 years already. 18 years already. But I've changed somewhat, because now as a coach, I'm a health and nutrition coach. As a coach, I know that, people have trouble. The hardest thing to do for many people is changing diet. You look at people change their diet all the time. You go to Wikipedia and you can find I think it's over 100 diets already. They're listed there. So people go from one diet to another. And for me, I think the most important thing that I've come to, for me, what I feel is that you need to introduce more plant-based foods in your diet, even if you're in, of course, the most popular diet in the U.S. now is the ketogenic diet, the keto diet, the paleo diet, which is even supported even by Kennedy Jr. It's part of the the latest, the guidance, the health guidance. So nutrition guidance. So, if you want to do that and you want to eat some meat and dairy, okay, but you need to introduce more plant-based foods. Why? Because you need the fiber. Fiber is crucial. And, people are so worried about protein. Protein has become like, the thing, But, for me, it's very easy to get protein on plants. You look at, there's so many elite athletes, that are living, proof of this, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's Kyrie Irving, the one who's the number one tennis champion. Well, he's sort of like retiring now. You have the Williams sisters. You have rock climbers and marathonists. I mean, you have boxers. David Haye, two-time world champion, heavyweight champion, was plant-based. You even had the Tennessee Titans. This was a few years ago. They went to the I think the division championship, and they had one vegan on the line because his wife cooked vegan for him. It ended up by the end of the year, there were 13 Tennessee Titans who were vegans on that championship team. So, and then you go, to look at some of the strongest animals in the world. You look at the gorilla, the elephant, the hippopotamus, the rhinoceros, the water buffalo. They're the cows, not that strong. Horses, they're plant-based. And so for me, it's like it's a no-brainer getting your protein and enough protein because you get them. I mean, I play. I'm experience vitality and enjoying my life on plants. And so anyway, but for me, the fiber is the problem, not the protein. The protein you'll get from the plant. What we're missing in the diet when you're not having enough plants is fiber. And why do I mention fiber? Because fiber is the main food, is the favorite food of our microbiome, or we know as the gut, our gut microbiome. These are the bacteria, these are the microbes that live in our gut that thrive on fiber. And the fiber is when we eat it, it doesn't get digested, it goes through it, and it goes right into the colon. And that's what they do. They ferment it. So that's why they say, hey, eat more fermented foods, because that's like a popular thing now. But that's what the fiber does. It changes the fiber into fermented food, and then you get the short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and acetate. And this is what strengthens your colons. This is what strengthens your immune system. This is what gives you health. So we need good bacteria to help us because we are living in a sea of microbes, 36 trillion of them that are inside our gut, inside our whole body, on our skin, in our mouths, and most of them are friendly. So the great majority of them are friendly, and then when we feed them the good stuff, they get stronger and they help us be stronger. So the unfortunate thing is the diet, the standard American diet, 95% of the people don't get even the minimum amount of fiber that we need to really thrive, even to avoid chronic diseases. So that's what it's all about. I think women supposed to get 25 grams a day, and they only get 15. Men are supposed to get 38, and they only get 15. So we need to get more fiber in the diet. So I say, okay, don't get rid of the meat. Don't add more plants, add more, whether it's grains, whether it's beans, whether it's vegetables and fruits and seeds and nuts. There's so many beautiful things, all different colors. You start adding more to your diet, and then you will experience, maybe you'll lose some weight, maybe you'll feel more energy, more vitality, because it's important to get, results from it. So that's what I say is that add more into your diet, just change a little bit, maybe one more meal a week. And we love plant-based foods. We really do. the things we love to eat. We like guacamole. We like cereals. We like hummus or hummus. We like, there's so many things we probably, soups, vegetable soups. So, yes, okay.
No, I think the biggest problem is in the United States, it's hard to find great tasting vegetarian food if you go out. Whereas in other places, it's much easier to find foods that taste great, that are vegetarian. And once you get to experience that, you're like, okay. Because at the end of the day, that's really what people want, right? Food that tastes good. And as long as you can find that, I think that's the case. I just know if you're, I mean, it's gotten much better in the United States, but in the past, if you were vegetarian and you went to a restaurant, good luck. Like they might have one option for you, right?
That's true.
Or it was so carb heavy, like otherwise, that it's not really healthy. So that's always been a struggle. Beyond food, what else have you found to be helpful?
Exercise, very, very important. I think that will be next in line. Exercise. It's interesting because in the blue zones, I don't know if you're familiar with the blue zones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in the
I
blue
am.
zones, yeah. I just wanted to mention, can I mention just a little bit about what happened with the blue zones?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Dan Buettner, he worked for National Geographic. He was the author of the Blue Zones. He was back in 2008. I think it was 2008 or 2009. He was sent by National Geographic to find out where the healthiest and longest living people on the planet live. So he went with it was a 2-year study. He went with his research team, and they traveled around the world, and they found these 5 places. One was Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Loma Linda in California, and Nicoya in Costa Rica. So this is the 5 they found, 5 places, populations they found. And it wasn't just to find out where they lived. They wanted to find out, are there similarities? Because if there are similarities among these 5 places that were separated by oceans, large land masses, then there's something there. So that's what happened. So the number one thing they found was what I mentioned about nutrition, the plant-based nutrition, even though, and it's, it's important that most of these places aren't 100% plant-based. In Okinawa, they eat fish. In other places, they have meat, if you chicken or goat's milk. So but it's heavy on the plants. Of course, the plants have, they have, the fiber, they have the phytochemicals and all these, all the goods of anti-inflammatories. And so anyway, so that's what they did. And they found out that the food, and the other things they found that were similar was the exercise, but it wasn't specifically exercise. They went to a gym because these were mostly in rural areas, and the people were living a lot like they did hundreds of years before. And so they moved a lot. That's the key. Not to sit around. Okay, you can go to the gym for an hour and then sit around and on your computer for the rest of the day. That's not good. So, and that's what I remember because I do that. And in the modern world today, here we are, sitting in front of a computer, or we have our cell phone. But I try to remember to get up every 20 minutes, half hour, move around, not to sit around because it's not healthy. And we do that. We sit on a sofa, and in front of a TV for hours, and or on a phone and sitting down. So that's important. It's not so much exercise, it's exercise and movement. And I found pickleball, which is really great because it's great if you can find a sport that makes you move, because you're in competition. That's really great. And I just remembered that in Loma Linda, which is one of the places, one of the blue zones, they play pickleball. So if anybody wants to know about this, a little bit more about the blue zones, there's a documentary on Netflix in English and in Spanish. people who want to, speak Spanish. It's a 4-part series, Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones, and it's on Netflix. And Dan Buettner revisited these places a couple of years ago to find out about the people. And it's a great, so it's a great documentary that people want to find out. So exercise is very important. Another thing that's very important is, how do you deal with stress? Because we all know that stress is really intense now. The world as it is, just making ends meet for so many people. You people afraid of losing their jobs. Yeah. So that's what so anyway, dealing with stress is very important.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to where you started and your parents' lives, I got to believe they grew up with a lot of stress. Or is it just different kind of stress?
Well, I think that's another interesting question you have here. I don't, it's really interesting because I remember them, and I think what happened, because I don't remember those stressful times, that I think maybe they put it in the back burner, and I think they just started enjoying their life. And yeah, there was stress, but they don't have the stress we have today. I think, and it's really interesting because, I was just thinking when you mentioned that, they ate much healthier then. That's also true. Even though my parents ate, the meat and dairy. My father was a butcher. My brother was a butcher. So we ate a lot of meat and dairy, but we didn't have these ultra processed foods. It's like that is just like, we're eating terribly now. Not only what I mentioned about, eating more plants, we're eating a lot of garbage food that they're putting in on us. And that's what I think it's 70% of what people in the U.S. eat today are ultra processed foods. Foods have been altered, extra ingredients, different colors put into it, different ingredients that have nothing to do with food. And then so I think that's one of the things, that they were healthier and life wasn't that complicated now. You mentioned that life was not that complicated at that time with, the computers. And I mean, even for us, my wife and I, is like, holy mackerel, what's happening in this world? The kids today are getting used to this, the technology and everything. Unfortunately, it's at the expense of what? But, even for us, it's like, wow, this is new stuff. It's like, but we have to, get along with it. But life was really easier then, and yeah, it definitely was. So I think they deal with stress. But I think one thing that happened and changed everything big time was the pandemic, because I think we started going through a lot of stress, a lot of tension between people. Some people believe that you should do this. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Get the vaccine, don't wear the vaccine. You can't see your loved one because of this. They're in the hospital. Sorry about that. And this was put families in stress among themselves and against each other. And so I think that added to it, that added to the stress. So we inherited that, and we have stress now because what I mentioned about jobs and the money, relationships, what's happening in the world today, so unpredictable. Where does it go? Are we going to go into a recession? What should I do with my money? Is it safe to put the money in the bank? So all this stuff is happening. And I think that one of the things I do is it's called eustress, which is because there is so much stress, and you could do meditation, I do some Tai Chi and I do meditation, but there's ways of challenging the body so it deals with stress better. And so I incorporated new things that help me deal with stress more, beside meditation and just trying to go inside and remind myself that I am not everything that's happening out there is not who I really am. And just being reminded of that and connecting with ourselves and being reminded that we are not all the craziness that's going on. It's like, that's a great perk to have, to see things like that. And that's the way I try to see it. And that means, living in the moment. So a couple of the things I have added on to my life is I do breath work for calming down, especially, going as you get towards the evening. A lot of people, you get older, it's not that easy to stay, you fall asleep, you get up at night, you have to go to the bathroom or something. So as you get older, and I think that some of the people who are researching longevity should really understand that when you get older, it isn't that easy to sleep as it is when you're younger for a lot of people. So I get into breath work to calm me down. You learn about the what do you call the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. That the parasympathetic nervous system is what we want to be most of the time because it's calming. It's good for digestion, good for sleep. And then you have the sympathetic nervous system is when we're active. The cortisol, the stress hormone is functioning very well. We're active. We like to play. We work. We are enjoy the activities of our life. So I get into this breath work, and I also do breath holds, which help me increase the energy. I do intermittent fasting, which I do every morning, almost every morning. I'll create a window where I don't eat, because sometimes we eat too much, or we eat, we're not even hungry when we eat. So this type of fasting, the intermittent fasting, helps with that. I also do cold and hot therapy. So it's basically telling me myself, I'm challenging you, body. I want to remain healthy. I want to thrive. I want to have energy. I want to have purpose. That's another thing that's really super important, having purpose in your life. We get into our 80s. What's driving us? What do we have meaning? Why do we get up in the morning? So when we have purpose, when we have something inside of us says, yeah, I'm ready to face the day because I love to do this, whatever it is, I love to write. I love to speak in public. I love to take care of people. I love community. Caring community is very important. People you enjoy being with. So these are all things that I try to encompass in my life and make it a daily practice to and remind myself that I'm here. We get one chance, we get one life. I know there are some people who think we come back, we come back again, and that's okay. I don't know that for sure. The only thing I know is what's real is that I'm alive now. And this is a short life. It is so short. Rocky, I guess you get older, you find out how short life is. When you're a kid, it's like, why? When will I ever be 16 or 18? You just can't wait to get older. When you get older, you just say, boy, every day is like, what's today? Monday. Every day is Monday. The week goes so fast. And that's what's, so you really want to take advantage of this life and live it to the fullest. And what does that take? It takes an understanding of that life is a gift, that we've been given the gift. We didn't ask for it. We were given this gift when we were born. We got a gift, and this gift is going to be with us to the day we have to go. And we don't know when we're going to go, but if we can really just understand that and be grateful that it is a gift. It's an incredible thing. And then there's another gift. And for me, the other gift is our body, which is where our life lives while we're alive. Without the body, where would life live? So it's like, I love life. I really want to enjoy my life. Hey, I'm going to make that connection. I got to take care of my body because I want to enjoy it. So it's like all of a sudden you get, the mind connects to the body saying, okay, you got to take care of your body if you really want to enjoy whatever time you have on this planet,
And I think that's the important thing. People have to make a decision for themselves. Everything you talked about, a lot of it is basic common sense. And yet people don't do it. As I look at you and I hear you, I see the vitality. I see how well you're doing. You're moving about. You're enjoying life in your 80s. And I think people need to start understanding that if you don't take action and you don't do the work early, it becomes too late to be able to enjoy the later years. And I see a lot of people who are not healthy in their 80s, and I see other people who are
Yeah.
having the time of their life in their 80s. And, you don't have to live in the blue zone. You can live where you don't live in the blue zone, and yet here
Yeah,
you
we
are
don't
living
live
a
in the blue.
wonderful life. You have the
Yeah.
choice. You can do it anywhere you want. And I think that's the important thing is people got to make a choice. It's not that difficult. Figure out what works for you and go make it happen.
But you know what? One thing you said is really important is that I think people don't really understand that they're not going to do something until something bad happens to them. And that's unfortunate because, but I think it's important for people to understand, my father, he was during the war, World War II. He had two sons, me and my brother, and he didn't have to go to war. So they put him in the Brooklyn Navy Yard to paint the hulls of ships. And that's what he did. But the problem was he was exposed to asbestos in the hulls of ships because at that time they didn't know about asbestos. So he was exposed in the 1940s. He passed away when he was 78. He took 40 years for that cancer, mesothelioma, to advance enough that it happened, and all of a sudden it happened, and so women, they go to their to get the exam, mammogram, and they early detection. No, it's not. It got to the point where they was able to be picked up by the machine. That could have been cancer, could have been developed for decades. So I think what's very important, and it goes along with what you're saying, is that people have to understand it doesn't automatically happen that, oh, I got cancer when I was 75, or I got a heart attack a heart disease when I was, no, it's happening from way back. And when people start understanding, it's happening now. You think you're not going to get a chronic disease when you're in your 70s? You may have chronic disease right now in your 40s and 50s, and it's just not bad enough. So I think people, when they understand that it grows and it graduates, look at type 2 diabetes. It was unheard of in children before, colon cancer. Colon cancer was very rare, men under 50s, and now it's very prevalent. So if people got to understand it's happening more because of different reasons. But, diet is very important. The ultra-processed foods are like in the middle aisles. Don't go to or try to avoid the middle aisles of where you go buy food, wherever it is, and try to stay more on the outside aisles where you have healthier foods. Because in the middle aisles, they have foods that stay on the shelves there for a long time because they got these additives and everything put in them. So if people could start becoming aware of it's never too early to start. It's even better to start. And yet it's never too late to start. So, you can do reverse. You can slow down type 2 diabetes, heart disease. You can, fight against cancer, osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease. It's never too late. There's ways. It's there. The information is there. You just got to go to alternative information and don't depend so much on your doctor, your specialist, who has his, if he's a surgeon, what does a surgeon do? He does surgery, So they do what they know, what they learned. And that's what we have to, but like you said, it's like we have to become responsible for our own health. And that's where the change is going to happen. If we don't, then we listen to what, the narrative and what we're being told. It's not that easy. So we need to first say, I'm going to take responsibility for my own health.
And that's basically what it comes down to. You have to take responsibility for your own health, and don't expect that doctors are going to keep you healthy. They're great at helping you when you're sick, but most of them may not help you to get the level of health that you've been able to experience. And for me, I mean, I'm still in 60, and my goal is in 20 something years, when I'm your age, I want to be active like you are. So I got to do the work today to allow that to happen at that point in time.
It's time to learn the secrets of life.
What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
I think success is not so much dependent on the outside. I think we put too much emphasis on having success on the outside when inside we could have a lot of success, and that is feeling well, enjoying our lives, and experiencing that we're feeling well. And if we have to consider that, as well as considering what success is on the outside. And when you put success on a goal, in a sense, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because if you want to be successful in something, you need to have a strategy. You need to have, how am I going to get there? Because, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. It's like, a coach of a team, he says, we want to win the Super Bowl. We want to win the championship, right? But it's this coach. Okay, you can have that in the back of your mind, but it's the coach that's really, maybe it's going to take 2-3 years to get there, So we're going to do it. We're going to start working on it now. So even though you have that goal up there, you got to have your habits. You have to have your little processes that are going to go along the way and eventually get you there. And those are the teams that make it, the ones that, and that's the way it is with people, it's like you have a success. Like, I want my book, this book, The Longevity Wellness Revolution, to sell 1 million. I want that to happen, but I'm not focusing on that. I'm just saying, okay, what can I do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a podcast today, and then I'm going to do a short. I'm going to put it on Instagram, and I'm going to put it on. I'm not. It's there, but I'm really enjoying the little things every day that are, maybe it's called little successes. Just because if you're not enjoying the day, and it all depends upon whether you're going to make that big success, you may not enjoy your life that much.
No, you have to enjoy the day. That's very, very true. What did you learn later in life that you wished you might have learned sooner?
Accept people, not to judge people so much. I judged people, and, and it's really interesting. And I'm just going to mention this. I judged my father, and my father, I always felt my father wasn't as loving as my mother. My mother was a tremendously, she was like really, and I always remember my father, and I was always, it was judging him. And now I see it, and I understand what he went through. It's like, he was hard. He came from, that side of the world. They went through, like I mentioned, escaping during the revolution, and then going through the Depression, and going World War II, and just starting to enjoy his life. But it's like, why? And I, so I guess it is. So now and then I started finding out I don't judge people as much now as I used to judge them, because I understand that they have their life. What are they going through? It's like, even just going, driving a car, and all of a sudden somebody passes right in front of you, and the initial response is like, I'm going to get angry at this person. I'm judging that person. Who the hell do you think he think he is, getting in front of me? Doesn't he know who I am? And then realize, but maybe he has to go to a hospital. Maybe, you know what I mean? It's like, I really, what I try to do now, and great question, is I really try to get to know people. Because, in this pickleball community where I'm part of, we all have different ideas. We all think about politics differently. We think about food differently. We think about the health. We have all different beliefs. But then when you start finding out and dealing with them in person, you find out they're human beings. And I think that's the way it is all over the world. The people want the same thing, basically, no matter where you're from.
They do.
Unfortunately, it's the politicians. They want to get what they want to get. But people are people, and you see it. I don't know if you've watched any of I've been watching some of the soccer games because, Mexico plays tomorrow. And I just look, and you look at people from all over the world. Doesn't matter whether they're cheering. They're so happy. It's like we're people. People are people. That's amazing.
It is. It's very, very true. If you were to give an 18-year-old one piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Well, I think it would be if what I know now is the same thing about judging your parents. It's like, yeah, no, maybe I would say that, don't be on the cell phone so much. Don't, when you talk to a person on a cell phone, it's not like talking to the person in person. You may think it is, and, you may want, you're on the cell phone, you're on the computer. It's happening to my sons. They have their problem with their children. They can't stop them, being on the phone all the time or being in front of any kind of a screen all the time. And they're missing out in their lives. And it's not only that, they're losing out on, they're being so infiltrated with what to think and what to believe because of the media that's coming through, through the phones, through the the internet, through the TV screen. And it's like, if I had, they're not going to listen to me anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But, meet your friends in person. That's what we always used to do. Play more, get out into the street. And we used to go out. You would probably remember the same thing the way it was compared with, what it is now. But I guess that's that's what I would say.
Different time.
Be with people. Be with people and enjoy people, and don't judge them so much, and don't be so interested in how many likes or followers you have.
It's all fake anyway.
Yeah.
If people would like to learn more about you in the book, where can they find you?
Well, I have my website, which is similar to the name of the book, except that you get rid of the longevitywellnessrevolution.com. And I have, I write articles. I come out with podcast. Well, my podcasts come out, or I come out with videos almost every week, every 10 days. So people going to my website will be really great. I have a Substack that goes out, and I'll give that to you. So if you could put that in the notes, my Substack. I'm on Twitter. I'm on
You're
Twitter.
everywhere.
Yeah, trying to be there. I have a Facebook page, and yeah.
Well, that's awesome. We'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky. It was really great. I love getting all this stuff out,
Absolutely. Michael's not waiting to be healthy one day. His mindset is that it's already there. I spend a lot of time on working on my health so that I can also age like Michael does gracefully. That's why this is important to me. You've got to make choices in your 40s and 50s so that your 60s, 70s, and 80s are great. It's a long-term game, and you've got to start as early as possible to ensure that you get to live it as you want. If you know someone else who might like to enjoy their elder years, share the episode. You can find me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.